Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's nice to see some of you who have been regularly joining, and it's nice to see a gathering of all of you from all over the world, all across the world. With so many takes on happiness, it's no wonder that happiness is a little difficult to define scientifically. Today, we have with us once again Brother Yogesh Sharda from Istanbul, sharing with us on who owns your happiness. Indeed, this is a good question that we need to ask ourselves. Brother Yogesh is a Raj Yoga teacher and a meditator for more than 30 years now. And he is also a personal development trainer and a workshop facilitator for various companies and universities. So now we are going to welcome Brother Yogesh. As usual, Brother Yogesh will be answering questions. So do drop your questions, if any, at the chat box, and I shall address them to him. Thank you. Om Shanti. Good morning, Brother Yogesh.
Hello, Om Shanti. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, it's clear. Nice to have you once again join us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Over
Big
to you
pleasure
now.
for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Om Shanti, and I think good evening to everyone there in Jakarta. And once again, a big thanks to Sister Jabin for organizing and inviting me to be in your presence. It's really a pleasure to share gleanings and experiences from the spiritual journey. And I do believe that whatever one shares or teaches with others, it's actually what one needs to learn oneself. And I do find that having the chance to share ideas about the spiritual journey just reminds me of how amazing the journey is, and also the importance of continuing to revise the lessons, no matter how many times one visits the lessons of the spiritual journey. It's never enough. And we have to keep going deeper and deeper and making those lessons very firm for ourselves. And so today we have this topic of happiness, and the title we're working with is Who Owns Your Happiness? Now, firstly, why? Why do we need to look at happiness? Well, it seems to me that one of the main things that drives us in our daily behaviors is the need to experience happiness. And this is why there are so many books and DVDs and seminars, talks on discover your happiness, learn how to be happy, find happiness, because it's a return journey. It's something that each soul is looking for, because that is the nature of the human soul. In fact, you could add to happiness also the search for peace, the search for love and contentment. There are no books or seminars on discover your stress, learn how to be miserable, or 10 tips in driving yourself into a depression. When we experience those states of unhappiness or feeling miserable, we definitely will want to do something to move out of there. Why? Because happiness is the basic nature of the human soul. And so how to make that journey back to experiencing happiness as our natural right, our natural state once again. Now, whether it comes to people who are on the spiritual journey or those who may not be on a spiritual journey, but certainly the experience of happiness is necessary to keep one moving from day to day. And so what does it mean for us as those on the spiritual journey to experience happiness? Why do we want happiness? Well, one comes onto the spiritual path because we want more than simply temporary experiences. We don't want the kind of happiness which is here today, but then disappears tomorrow. We also don't want that kind of peace or love or security which lies outside of me. And that kind of happiness we may describe as circumstantial happiness. And it's rather like saying you are having a good time, or you are having fun, or you are having some pleasurable experiences. But if my happiness is based upon those kinds of temporary experiences, or based upon people or situations being the way I want them to be, then when they shake, when they change, when they disappear, which they certainly will do, then my happiness will also crash. Spirituality is telling us that do not base your happiness upon the things or the people outside of you, because that will one day disappear. But base your happiness upon yourself. Understand what happiness is and move through your life with that happiness. And so, to some degree, this requires a re-education of the spirit to understand where my own happiness is coming from. And in the time allotted, let's see how many ideas we can get through to explore some of the factors which influence our happiness, where we need to pay attention to really own our happiness and experience quality happiness as we move through life. Indeed, it's one thing to simply go through life, but it's something else to grow through life. And we'll be exploring some of that as well. So I have some of these visuals to show you. And once again, you can see I've spent huge sums of money to produce these. So here we are. Can you see this? I want happiness. So what should we do here? Well, it's quite simple. If we get rid of that, and if we get rid of that, then we are left with happiness. And that's all there is to it. Remove the I, remove the want, and you're left with happiness. And that is the essence of the whole lecture. So, Sister Jabin, I think we can finish there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's that simple. So, I represents the ego, and want represents desire. And so, overcoming these enables one to return to the state known as happiness. And for me, in fact, happiness is like a river that's already flowing within the soul. But what happens is that we complicate things, we create blockages in that river, largely due to unnecessary or complex thinking. Simply put, when the quality of our thoughts or our words or our actions are elevated, then our happiness remains stable, remains constant and deep. But when the quality of those thoughts, words, and actions reduces, then the happiness also fluctuates. And this requires us to learn certain strategies in life in how to see life situations, how to handle adversity, how to handle people who may not be flavor of the month with you. And that's a skill that we may describe as a spiritual skill or spiritual intelligence. How to view situations so I can maintain my inner happiness. Now, it's just like, for example, a person who is well educated in taking care of their physical health. So if he or she knows how the physical health works, how to take care of the immune system, then such a person can adjust to different temperatures or perhaps not having the foods that he or she usually has, and learns how to pass through challenges, maintaining good health. It's the same with maintaining the health of the soul, which is looking after your peace and happiness. What sort of attitude is required? What sort of attitude is appropriate when you face the different challenges of life? And sometimes those challenges come in the form of situations where things don't work out as you had planned. Suddenly something changes, or what you are used to having is one day not there. Sometimes those challenges come in the form of people. You have to deal with or work with or even live with someone whose personality is quite opposite to yours. So to be able to adjust my attitude and my vision according to the person and the situation allows me to maintain my own happiness. I'd like to share another little formula here, which I found really very deep and very profound. Something to think about, and it's here. Happiness is equal to truth divided by desires. Now, what does this mean? We have to explore what is truth. And if I'm living in alignment with truth, then my happiness would be stable and very high. But what reduces the happiness is when there are desires in my mind which actually are going against truth. So let's explore this for a few moments. There are truths related to the self. There are truths related to life and other people. And there are truths related to the Supreme Being, the Supreme Energy. So what is the truth of the self? So as you would know, the very first thing we explore in our study is the truth of knowing who I am, and that is my own spiritual identity. Now, it has been beautifully said that all happiness lies in the answer to the riddle, who am I? At every moment, the answer I'm giving to this question, who am I, that answer is influencing my emotional state. Now, sometimes we give that answer consciously, but most of the time we are answering it subconsciously. Now, I know that you know what the real answer is. The real answer to that question is the first truth, which is I am a spiritual being. I am a soul. But the question is that to what extent do I maintain that in my awareness as I go through the day? So if I were to ask you, even right now, as you sit and as you are listening to these words, in which awareness are you listening? And I ask myself, as I speak these words, in which awareness am I speaking? Am I aware of myself as the spiritual being, the soul, that living energy in the forehead? I, the soul, am speaking these words. And as you listen, to listen in the state of soul consciousness, I, the soul, am listening to these words. This sounds very simple, but this practice of soul consciousness is the foundation of creating inner strength. And it's only when we accumulate inner strength that our happiness can remain constant. Most of the time, what happens is we waste the inner strength of the soul due to unnecessary thinking, wasteful thinking. This is like a leakage from the soul. The soul energy gets depleted. And then situations come, circumstances come, and my happiness disappears. Think of these two questions. What makes you feel happy? And you'll make a little list for yourself according to your own life, of course. But then a second question could be, what causes you to lose your happiness? And then there's another list of the things we find irritate us, make us upset, make us angry, and so on. The question arises, why do I lose my happiness when these things occur in life, whether it's in my personal life or it's things I read or hear in the news? And that's what we need to work on in terms of understanding truth. So the first truth is that not just to know, not just to accept, not just to believe, but really to live and practice the spiritual awareness. I am a soul, I am the spiritual energy. Then let's look at the second area of truth in relation to other people and in relation to life around us. Now, one of the aspects of truth there is that nothing is mine. Nothing is mine. And it's very important to take this truth on board and to live it. Why? Because perhaps the greatest challenge to our happiness is the fear we have of losing something or losing someone. And it's been discovered in surveys that one of the big causes of stress or stress-related experiences in life is so-called the loss of someone near you, the loss of a partner, for example. But what does truth tell us about this? Truth tells us that, in fact, we are all travelers through this journey of life, and we play our parts together, we dance through life. But the truth is, at the end of the day, nothing is mine, and also, in fact, no one is mine. When we live with this awareness of being eternal souls, I see the eternal in me, I see the eternal in you, then what happens is the fear, anxiety, nervousness, those things begin to reduce. Think of this, that why is the word loss used when, for example, somebody passes away? And in my understanding, in most languages, this word loss is used. We say, I'm sorry for your loss, or last year we lost so-and-so. But this is in fact based upon a false understanding, a false belief. And that false belief is that I own someone, I own something. And because everybody else thinks like that too, that has become the norm, that has become the culture. But spirituality or truth says this in fact is incorrect. When you see another person, whether it's somebody you've known your whole life or it's somebody you see first time, see what is eternal in that person. See the soul, and the soul never dies. Yes, the soul leaves the body. What happens after that is another subject to go into. But when we live in the awareness of the eternal, our thoughts become very elevated. When our thoughts are elevated, our happiness naturally emerges. When our thoughts are lower than that, and we come into this feeling of mineness, possessiveness is considered to be spiritual dirt, spiritual dust. When my thoughts, my awareness is within this feeling of mine, I and mine, necessarily I will lose my happiness. Or I'll be extremely happy today, but then I will crash tomorrow. And that we may describe as the roller coaster of emotions, which is pretty much the world today. Emotional happiness is where you are very happy today and sad tomorrow. Spiritual happiness, happiness which belongs to you. And you learn how to pass through challenges or adversity. So that's one of the main truths in terms of relating to life and people. Nothing is mine. Let's look at one or two more ideas with regard to how to see situations and circumstances. And here are two wonderful points which I've heard from what we call as the Muralis, which are our basic lessons, the things that we study. And I remember hearing this one when I was at school, and it was very poignant for me. So think, for example, of a student who's sitting for an exam, and as he or she is in the exam hall answering the questions on the test paper, let's say there is some unusual question on the test paper. And the student starts thinking, well, now, why is this question here? This is an unusual question. What was the examiner thinking when he or she wrote this question? What was going on in the examiner's mind? So now, if during the exam, the student starts thinking about the question, then he or she is wasting time. So during the examination, one has to answer the question, not question the question. You see what I mean? If the student starts thinking, why is this question here? Then it's the wrong response. But the right thing to do is, here is the question, let me get busy answering it. So too it is in life. If you see the whole of life as an education, and if you consider yourself to be a spiritual student, then from time to time, this university of life will bring questions in front of you to test you. What kind of questions? Well, all the questions are to do with the virtues of life and what we call as the spiritual powers of life. What are they? For example, a question could be, how much patience do you have? Another question can be, how deep is your tolerance? Another question could be, are you able to forgive? Another question could be, are you free from attachment? Another question, how big is your heart? How much are you able to love? How much generosity do you have inside yourself? In every situation we pass through, and also in the relationships that we experience, these questions will come. But one has to recognize at that moment that at this very moment, life is testing me and asking me a question. So for example, common example, you have to deal with somebody who's maybe speaking to you in a condescending manner, somebody who's disrespectful to you, somebody who's rather rude to you. Now, an ordinary person may say, well, I don't stand for this, I don't need this, and may, disappear or may react back. But when we are spiritually aware, when you consider yourself to be a spiritual student, the first thing you'll ask yourself is, can I maintain my peace of mind and my happiness in this situation? Even whilst seeing this person, even whilst listening to this person, I'm going to own my happiness. I'm not going to lose my self-respect no matter what is said. And so I will see the situation as an opportunity for me to check myself. I will use that situation as a checkpoint to know how much tolerance do I really have. Questioning the question means, for example, why does he talk to me like this? What gives her the right to speak like this? What's wrong with him or her? So when we ask these kinds of questions, I'm questioning the question which life is giving me. Answering the question is applying the correct virtue or the correct spiritual power in that situation. Now, when we question the question, then I think then the Supreme, who is the examiner, he does this. When we answer the question, then he does this. Yay, good, well done, 10 points for you. So it's really a question of being spiritually aware to know everything that comes in my way, everything that comes in front of me is an opportunity for me to grow, to evolve, and to mature. Everything is connected to what you choose to see in a situation. Second example with regard to this kind of scenario, again, it's from one of the Murlis that we study. And the example was given of a person walking along a road, and in front of him is a boulder, a rock. And this rock is blocking this person's way. And so what should he do? Imagine if he takes out a hammer and starts smashing the rock into tiny pieces so that he can then walk over it. Now, if he did that, you may say, well, this person is crazy. But an easier thing to do is just to go around it. To go around it or to climb over it if possible. In the same way, sometimes boulders or rocks or obstacles come in front of us in our lives in the form of situations, in the form of a certain personality of a certain person on a certain day. But the thing to not do is to start to smash the situation with my hammer. And it was said in that particular example that the hammer is the question, why? When we ask that question, why is she talking to me like this? Why didn't they ask me first? Why this? Why that? Why the other? So asking the question why is like trying to smash that situation into tiny pieces. The result is our mind becomes exhausted. And when you're exhausted, happiness disappears. A small situation will be experienced as a huge and difficult situation when the mind is tired. So instead of that, excuse me, instead of that, the thing, of course, is to just go past the situation, not to get entangled within it. And the phrase which was used in that particular lesson, that particular Murli, is when you're faced with a certain situation like that, don't say why, but just fly. Don't say why, don't ask why, just fly over it, just keep going. And it's so simple, but we really have to pay attention to it. I myself, I didn't think that I used to ask the question why, but when I really began analyzing it, I saw, in certain situations, I do unnecessarily ask why. And it's a much better solution just to say fly, go over it. Let's keep moving. Let's not allow anything or anyone to steal my own happiness. It's not necessary to be a mental policeman for other people. No, it's not my job. I just have to make sure that I keep my peace of mind and my happiness, but I am not the giver or the provider of justice for everyone and everything. There's something else to take care of that, and that's called the law of action and reaction, which of course is another subject. Then just one more example here with regard to life and truth in terms of the principles of truth when you relate to people. And it's a story which has come up in various traditions, perhaps some of you are aware. It's a story of giving and taking. And so the story goes of an old wise man who lived in a village in the mountains, and his fame spread far and wide that he was very wise. So a young fellow in a neighboring village somewhere wanted to meet him and wanted to test him to see how wise is this person really. And so this old guy was just sitting and relaxing, and the young man came in front of him and started abusing him, swearing at him, insulting him, but yet there was no response from this old fellow. The young man got tired, had a rest, came back, tried some more insults, more abuse, more terrible words, but still no reaction from the old man. And finally the young fellow got exhausted, and he said, "I call you so many bad things. Why don't you say something back to me?" And the old man, he looked up at this young fellow and he said to him that if somebody gives you a gift but you don't accept it, in whose hand does the gift remain? Okay, so if somebody gives you something, it's up to you whether you accept it or you don't accept it. And it's the same also with sorrow. Somebody is giving you some sorrow, some disrespect, some words which are not right. Yes, it's bad of that person to speak like that to me, but then it's also wrong of me to accept it, to absorb it in my heart, and to make myself upset. That part is then my mistake. And we have a phrase, a slogan in our study, which again some of you will be aware of. Don't give sorrow and don't take sorrow. And this is really very important because we tend to be aware of the first half of this slogan. Don't give sorrow. And everyone knows that to give sorrow is not a good thing, shouldn't do it. It's not the way to behave. But to take sorrow is a habit that most people have. We take sorrow from people, we take sorrow also from situations. And that's a habit that we really need to break in order to own our happiness and own our peace of mind. Now, to not take sorrow doesn't mean you ignore people, doesn't mean you reject people, doesn't mean you close your ears to criticism, not that. You may listen to what is being said and you take what is useful, but you keep out maybe the disrespectful or the insulting attitude with which it's coming. Now, the way to do that is really to approach things with true self-respect. When I really respect myself, when I'm in a state of soul consciousness, I will be able to separate what somebody says from the way it is being said. And let's say I make some mistake. I was careless, I didn't pay attention, could be anything, I was late for something, and somebody points that out to me and tells me my mistake, but also is very rough with me, very insulting, very condescending. So there's two things there. One is what that person has actually said, and the other is the attitude with which he or she said it. If my self-respect is high, if I'm really soul-conscious, I will separate those two things. And I'll say, what this person is saying is actually true. I could have paid more attention, or I could have informed I'm going to be late, or I could have planned better. Though that part is true, I accept that. But the insulting way it is being said, I will keep that out and I won't take sorrow from it. So I'll use what is productive and I'll allow myself to grow and improve for the future, but I won't feel bad because of the insult which came with it. But when self-respect is lacking and instead there is ego, then I reject the whole package. I would say, I don't accept what you say because I didn't like the way you said it. And this is an ego-based reaction. That's what ego does. Ego breaks the relationships. Ego doesn't allow me to accept, yeah, I was wrong, I could have been better. And that's what we may describe as throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I reject the whole thing because I don't like the way this person talks. So maintaining true self-respect, I choose to own my peace, I own my happiness, but I am ready to learn. I know there is a way for me to go. There are improvements for me to make. And that balance of self-respect and humility is also very important in maintaining smooth relationships with others. A person who's truly humble will naturally give happiness to others. These two things go together, happiness and humility in the relationships. So these are some principles of truth to be aware of in our daily lives. And of course, there are many, many more. And then there is the truth also of understanding the nature of the Supreme. And I do believe that especially in these times we're passing through, it's really important for each person to experience a personal, a private, a meaningful, an experiential link with the source of happiness. And what helps us to do that? What helps us to come closer in that experience of a genuine sense of relationship with the Supreme Being? And so here is one thing I have experienced and of course learned from many others.
इमरान भाई खाना खा रहा हूँ थोड़ी देर में फोन करूँ आप 5 बजे तक 4 बजे तक मैं फोन करूँ
5 bit is okay. Okay, all right. So, yeah, because the power one experiences in the relationship with the Supreme, that power is going to enable my heart to become very strong and my happiness really to become very solid. But what tends to happen is in our relationship with the Supreme, sometimes we mix up what is my responsibility with what is the responsibility of the Supreme. So there are two important principles in that relationship. And one is this, that no matter how difficult your circumstances may be, how difficult the challenges in front of you are, but the way to get help from the divine being, from the source, is never to let go of one's courage. And it's like a sentence which should be written all the time on my forehead, that if I take one step of courage, the Supreme will give me 1,000 steps of help. No matter what's happening, whether it's relationship issues, health issues, finance issues, never let go of courage. Courage to move forward with life, courage to do the right thing. Because sometimes what happens, and this is again a dampener on our happiness, when one keeps thinking of the problems I have in my life or the things which did not work out for me, and we keep those in our mind and we keep them circulating in our mind, happiness disappears. And I feel life doesn't like me, life is not fair, even the big guy has turned his back on me. What can I do? And it's like you may drive yourself into a kind of depression. But courage should be like my constant companion in my journey through life. And I've experienced, I'm sure this Sister Jabeen and many, many others have experienced that already, that if you have courage, keep the thought of courage. I want to move forward. Let me do the right thing. Let me take at least one step in the right direction, and help will come to you in leaps and bounds, sometimes from unexpected directions. And this is the wonder of cultivating, nourishing, and honoring one's personal relationship with the Supreme Soul. And it's the right of every soul to have that kind of help, support, and protection. And I believe we need to use that more and more in our lives. But just a little caveat here, it does operate in this order. First, I need to take the step of courage, then the help comes. It doesn't work if I do it the other way around. It doesn't work if I say, well, help me, and then I'll see what I can do. Because then the big guy says, no deal. I don't work like that. First, you take the step of courage, then I'll throw you lots of help. So that's one formula in the relationship with the Supreme. And second one is that the Supreme Being, the Supreme Energy, the Divine, is pleased with an honest heart. And that tells us something about the personality of the Supreme. Supreme prefers an honest heart to clever head. So honest heart means I need to check my motives. Whatever I'm doing in my life, in my relationships, check my motive behind it. How clean is my motive? How free am I from selfishness? And cleanliness, as it is said in traditions, cleanliness is next to godliness. When the heart is clean, then whatever I truly desire will automatically come to me. This really helps us to be free from this trivial pursuit of temporary desire. Because another challenge to happiness is unfulfilled desires, chasing after the unfulfilled desires of the mind. And sometimes we see something which somebody else has, and we say, I would like that as well. I would like to have such and such. And so the mind starts racing. And so when I'm chasing after temporary desires, it's going to leave me stressed, exhausted, tired, and maybe come into the experience of jealousy, or conflict, or competition with others, comparing myself with others. And all of these are very low quality thoughts. Sometimes these are described as the jungle of thorns, a life which is like living in a jungle where these thorns are piercing you. Competition, jealousy, disappointment, criticism, revenge, all of that which we want to be free from. So here's a little slogan which I have found very useful. Don't desire, but deserve. Means just make yourself deserving. How? By working on cleaning out your intentions. By working on applying virtues into your life and your relationships. The more I deploy virtue in my life, self-respect, honesty, truth, etc., the more deserving I become. The more deserving your character becomes, then what you really deep down desire starts running after you. It comes to you. And it's a very royal way of living when things come to you rather than you are chasing after them. Some of you will know this phrase in Hindi that it said, one who is a yogi never has to ask for sehayog. Sehayog means cooperation. So if you really are a yogi, if you're really honestly connected to the source, to the supreme, life will bring to you what you really need. You won't even have to ask for it, but it will come by itself. And this is why this connection of soul and supreme soul, this yoga connection, is considered to be the highest action that a human being can do. No matter what kind of issue you have in your life, if you pay attention to strengthening your yoga connection, the energy that you develop through that, which you then apply into your life, is going to make the drama of life cooperate with you. And that's the wonder of continuing to clean out your own consciousness, make the soul clean. So let me just finish this part with a little story. And I found an amusing story when I first heard it, and maybe some of you have heard it before. It's about how we mix up, our responsibility with the responsibility of the Supreme, of God. And it's a story called The Flood. That one day in a certain village, it was forecast that the sea is going to, there's going to be a storm in the sea, and there'd be a flood. A village near the sea would be flooded. And so the authorities, they asked everyone to evacuate, to leave town. So everybody left, except one guy. And this guy said, I have a deal with God, and God is going to save me. I don't need anybody else. So they said, okay, fine. So everybody left town. The day came, the flood came, and this man was in his house. And the flood waters were rising. So he was standing on his kitchen table in the house. And so the authorities sent a big jeep to pick him up. And they said, come, we'll save you. Come with us. And he said, no, you don't understand. I don't need you. God is going to save me. So they said, okay, fine. And sometime later, the water level kept rising. And now he was standing on the wall outside his house. And the authorities came in a boat, and they said, come, hold my hand, jump into the boat, come with us, we'll save you. He said, no, you don't understand. I don't need you to save me. God is going to save me. So he was so insistent, they said, okay, fine. And as time went on, the water level kept rising. Now he was standing on the roof of his house. And the authorities, they sent a helicopter. And they lowered down a rope ladder, and they said, grab hold of the rope, we'll pull you up. And he said, look, you just don't get it, do you? I don't need your help. God is going to save me. I have a deal with God. So they said, okay, and they flew away, and the water level kept rising. And yes, eventually he drowned, he died. And then the story goes that then he went upstairs to looking for God, and he wasn't very happy with God. So he's looking around to see, where is God, to give him a piece of his mind. And he saw a door with a sign which says God, and he knocked on the door, went in, and God was sitting there. And the man said, excuse me, are you God? And God said, yes. What can I do for you? The man said, look, you said, if I have faith in you, you will save me. I had faith in you, but I drowned. Why didn't you save me? And God said, look, just sit down. God, took off his glasses and stroked his chin and said, look, I sent you a jeep. I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. But you didn't listen. So what more could I do? So for me, that was an indication that, you know, God works in mysterious ways. And, you know, I have to be open and alert to the signs and signals from life. And the more I am soul conscious, the more I'll be able to really pick up, you know, what is the right thing for me to do in a situation. And so this is an ongoing, of course, lifelong journey to continue to discover the personality of God, the personality of the Supreme, and take that help in our daily life. So the situations which are outside of me, they don't enter me and rob me of my happiness. Let my boat move through life, but not let the water of life enter into my boat and corrupt my happiness. So let me just take a couple more minutes to finish off. So in these three main areas, self, others, and the relationship with God, am I happy with myself? First thing is this. And what is needed in having a good self relationship? And it's like this. Let's say if I can be here in terms of my, here's my potential to do anything in life, but where I currently am is here. I know I could be doing better, but I am here. So this gap here will be filled by some sense of disappointment or discontentment. I know I could be doing better, but I'm not paying attention. So in order for me to really have a good self-relationship, happy with myself, I need to be in alignment with my potential. In simple terms, where there is alignment with my own conscience, then the soul is happy with itself. If I'm doing what I know I can do and am able to do, then it's like subconsciously you give yourself a pat on the back and say, yeah, I'm happy with myself. But when I'm not living up to my own potential, even though other people may say me, you know, be light, take it easy, love yourself, but inside you know that I could be doing better, but I'm just not paying proper attention. So check the self. Am I living in alignment with my conscience? Am I true to myself? Am I honest with myself? Having a good self-relationship is really the fundamental step, I think, to having solid happiness. Then two is, are other people happy with me? And for that, the basic formula is for me to be able to give regard to other people. Doesn't matter what they are like. Other people's personality is their issue. But what's important for me is, can I generate a real regard for other souls, the people I live with, I work with, people you meet in the street or at airports, generating this energy of regard for others. That's what is going to make others happy with me. And sometimes we call that as the certificate of happiness, from receiving that from others. And the third one, which I've already talked about, is getting the certificate of happiness from the Supreme. And for that, the formula, as mentioned, is I need to work on having a clean and honest heart. And that's what attracts the attention of the Supreme. And you feel the blessings of the Supreme entering you, and your happiness becomes very deep and imperishable. Okay, so let me pause there. Hope these things are useful for you as they have been for me. And I'll just hand over to Sister Jabeen for further instructions.
Thank you so much, Brother Yogesh. You have given all of us so many points to ponder upon, to dwell on. It's like a homework that we need to look into. Just before we go into the next segment, just a few thoughts that I have written down myself is the formula that you said, happiness is equals to trust divided by desires.
So truth divided by desires.
Oh, truth divided by desires. Okay. Thank you for correcting. That is wonderful. And also the other point, that nothing is mine. This is what we need to always remember, that nothing is mine. So we have a few questions, but before we start the question and answer, can we have a few minutes of guided meditation?
Yeah, sure. Do we have like a point of light image or something we could project, or okay, even like that's okay. Okay, let's just take a step back. And so we spend a few moments to step back from the mode of doing to the mode of being. And if you're seated on a chair, it can help to have your back straight and your feet flat on the floor. And so let's experience 3 different stages. The first stage is to experience silent space. And this is where I just allow my thoughts to slow down. I withdraw my attention from the outside and I bring it to myself. Just allow the mind to be calm. I leave the outside world outside and I am with myself, this wonderful silent space. The space where nothing and no one can enter. The space where I am with my own self. My thoughts are free, not being pulled, not being pushed by anything. And from this silent space, I now enter into sacred space, where I ask myself the question, who am I? And I remind myself of the first truth, and that is, I am eternal spiritual energy. I can never die. I, the soul, the spiritual energy, I play my part in this unlimited theater of life. I move move through life observing, participating, sometimes as a performer, sometimes as the audience. I move through the scenes and scenery of life, but I keep my peace and my happiness in my own hands. I choose to maintain this awareness. I am a peaceful, a joyful, a loveful, a powerful soul. This is my sacredness. This is true self-respect. And now let me experience divine space. I turn my thoughts to the one who is called the source of peace, the ocean of peace, the true friend of the soul, the unlimited observer, the one who knows me better than I know myself, the protector, the guide. And I remember my eternal connection with this true friend of the soul. And I feel that comfort, companionship, protection. Let me live in this divine partnership at every moment. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. The first question here is, what kind of effort can one make if one is the only person who is following spiritual knowledge and the others of the family members or the parents are not following?
Well, it's easier than it used to be. Due to technology now, we can be in touch with others who are following the journey, so then we don't feel alone all the time. But what does help is to do meditation in your home and helping to generate those vibrations of spirituality in your home. And what happens through this, and this is what I've heard from many, many colleagues, is it begins to impact the attitude of those who are living in your home. Now, it may be that if you speak to them, they may reject you, they may oppose you, they may challenge you, they may ridicule you. So usually with family members, and of course I don't quite know your personal situation, But with family members, giving them spiritual knowledge doesn't work for very long, because they may say to you, "Are you my guru? Are you trying to teach me?" But what impacts them more is two things. One is a change in your own personal behavior. So, for example, before, where maybe you used to get angry in a situation, now you don't. Before, you used to maybe get nervous or get upset, now you don't. They begin to notice changes in your behavior which will impact them. The second thing is, as I mentioned already, find some time every day, and it may be in the morning if that's the only time you get, when you can sit and do some special meditation to spread those vibrations in the house. Even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes a day, but do it every day and see how the atmosphere begins to change. An atmosphere will impact their attitude. It'll make them more soft. They may not become spiritual like you, but they will begin to accept you more. They'll begin to support you more. And this is also, where I was talking about courage. If you have the courage to do this, help comes from upstairs, and this begins to change the way other people deal with you.
Thank you, brother. There's a question from YouTube. How to overcome job security in private sector? What thoughts we have to create to overcome anxiety and fear in competitive world?
Job insecurity, you mean?
Yeah.
Job insecurity. Yeah, well, certainly in in the world today, there's a lot of fear and anxiety about the future. And with regard to the job, this is one area. But what spirituality teaches us is that life is not random. Things will not happen or just not happen just like that. Of course, there are economic factors and there are factors of society and so on. But underneath everything, there is a principle. And that principle is known as the law of cause and effect, or action and reaction, choice and consequence, also known as karma. And what that tells us is that no matter what's happening, if I choose to live with the highest values that I can live with, if I deploy honesty, integrity, kindness, values and virtues into my life, this is the greatest protection. Life will take care of me if I am honestly and sincerely trying to live with the highest values that are possible for me. The energy of values and virtues actually is more powerful than situations. This reminds me of something I wanted to say earlier, but I forgot. It's like this, there's your inner state, and then there are circumstances. And usually people live with this idea that when circumstances are okay, then I'll be happy inside. But in the spiritual life, it's the other way around. Let me learn to keep my happiness, my integrity, my self-respect, and the energy or the vibrations of my happiness will change my circumstances. So always to remember, I am a soul. Either soul, I am a powerful soul. Either soul, I'm a child of the Supreme Soul, and I am more powerful than circumstances. So do your work, pay attention, but pay attention with these powerful thoughts. And then the fear, the anxiety, the insecurity will begin to reduce, and there'll be a quiet confidence inside. Whatever I need will come to me at the right time, as long as I am honestly applying values in my personal life. There'll be this faith inside you. At the right time, the right thing will come.
The next question is, I have the subtle trait of comparison and inferiority complex. How do I overcome that?
Yeah. Yes. Again, it's I think something I used to experience also in my, maybe early to mid teens is comparing with others, not not knowing who I am, what I'm supposed to be. It's really a question of self-respect, to truly honor who I am. And one of the things that helped me was the realization that it's like, like in a garden, there are so many different kinds of flowers. And the garden looks good when each flower is blooming to its own extent. And there isn't any other flower like you are. Every single human soul is different. And what's important is for me to focus on bringing the best me out of me. I can't be another person, and nobody else can be me, but I have to accept who I am right now, and then get busy in bringing the best me out of me. Let me focus only on that. And when I'm busy doing that, the mind will not look at others. In fact, even if you look at others, other people's talents, abilities, specialities, from inside you won't feel inferior or less, but there'll just be a feeling of, hey, that's great, I'm happy for you. I'm happy you're able to do that, or I appreciate your talent. You've worked hard on developing that. So as long as I am busy in bringing the best me out of me, I'll be free from the habit of comparing myself with other people. And this is really self-respect. I respect my true self. I know there is a storehouse of excellence inside me. It's up to me to emerge that.
The next one is, if we see an instance of when someone is being disrespectful to someone, but the receiver of that attitude or disrespect is being calm and not taking it on, should we, as the observer, intervene or not?
If the receiver is not taking it on, I think it means the receiver is very mature, and probably I've got something to learn from the receiver. If somebody is receiving that kind of disrespect, but it's not bothering that person, then it's between that person and the other. And since this person is not, when you say not taking on, I take it to mean this person is not getting upset, not getting angry, not being ruffled by it. It means he or she is quite mature spiritually. So in that sense, no need for me to interfere in the interaction between those two.
The next question, we still have two questions, brother. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The next one is, when everyone in your surrounding has negative thoughts, and so hence negative energy is going to flow towards you, all the time people are ready to attack you and their words and thoughts with their words and thoughts, is it possible for one to live in its original state of mind?
It's challenging to live in that state. One has to be really very powerful to not be influenced by all that, especially if it's going on. I would say two things there. One is what I mentioned earlier, that if it's a place you live or a place you work, to try and spread the power of your spiritual vibes can help to change the situation. But as well, you need support yourself as well. So, like if you're near, for example, one of our meditation centers, making sure you go there, you get your power from your own meditation, and you get support and help from others, other meditators and those on the spiritual journey. So you have something to make you stronger. And this can help you then to firstly, maintain your peace of mind in that situation. It's another thing to influence others and make the atmosphere powerful. But first, you yourself have to maintain your peace of mind. So just make sure that you take the power you need from the meditation center and those who are also experienced meditators. So you nourish your own spirit in order to keep yourself stable and strong.
I think you have just answered the next question as well, but I'll just read it out anyway. Maybe if there's something that you would like to add. I do not want to listen to people who talk something bad about other people, but I can't close my ears at the same time. I don't want to see things which are not good, but how do I do it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, again, depends on if it's at work or at home and what's possible for you. But the thing is, if other people are speaking ill of others or trashing others, and if I am listening to it, then people will label me as a trash can. They'll feel I can go and dump on him or dump on her and speak useless things. So in other words, I'm giving other people the message that, yeah, I'm here to listen to your rubbish. You want to trash someone? I'm the guy you can talk to. So I mustn't give people that message. So what can help? Again, I'm just thinking of a situation is if somebody is speaking ill of somebody else, can I say something, even one sentence or a few words, which can help the person to see that person differently? Sometimes one very well placed and meaningful question can change someone's thought trajectory. For example, yeah, okay, so and so is like this, but what can we learn from him? Or, yeah, but he also has some good points too, doesn't he? Now, injecting a meaningful question to change the direction of somebody's thoughts or words, that's a real skill to develop to do that. But if one cannot do that, then it's a good thing maybe to be honest, respectful but honest, and to say, I really don't want to hear this, or I'd rather not listen to this. Just to be quite honest and to have self-respect and courage to be able to say that. So again, it depends on the situation, but that's also an act of self-respect.
Thank you so much once again, Brother Yogesh, for joining us today and sharing your wisdom with us and for answering all these questions. It was wonderful, very simple, very easy to understand. So thank you. We do hope when everything is better, we do hope you can visit us in Jakarta and we can have a session with you live here.
It would be my honor to be with you there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank
Okay.
you,
All the best.
everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Our next session will be on coming Saturday with Sister Jenna. She's from USA, Washington, D.C. She is also a wonderful speaker and wonderful soul. So do hope all of you can join us. It will be at 5 p.m. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay happy. Thank you. Om Shanti.